Welcome back to another exciting episode of This Week in Indies. On this episode, we'll be talking about writer's block and exercising your creativity. Are there ways to prevent writer's block? Is it different for podcasters, bloggers, writers, and artists? What do they do? How else does it benefit our mental health? Does self-care play a role in exercising your creativity? We'll chat about these topics and more as we sit down at the round table with a knowledgeable group of creatives. Then we'll hear from C.L. Cannon with this week's Indie Connection, featuring books similar to The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Then we'll spend the final 5 minutes with creative James Hill as we take a glance into his mind and what he's put out in the world. So get ready for a good time, grab a drink, maybe some popcorn, and let's get ready for a fun and exciting show. Because as you know, here on Go Indie Now, the fun never stops. Here's your host for this week, Madilynn Dale. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of This Week in Indies. We've got a great group to discuss this amazing topic this morning. And me personally, I'm excited to talk about it because exercising your creativity and having that in your arsenal to combat writer's block and just different techniques that are used, that's huge in the creative world. But before I bring everybody in, I want to mention you can find all of my stuff at my website down here, thechaptergoddess.com. Also, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. We've got amazing shows constantly going on here for Go Indie Now. And if you're watching on Facebook, send a star to let our hosts and producers know how much you appreciate what they do here at Go Indie Now. Every time you contribute, you get entered into our season prize package drawing with gift cards, swag, and more. And make sure you check out all of these authors' works. Like, they're amazing. But let me bring everybody in, and we're going to go around the table, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us what you write. But we're going to start kind of like, get my fingers. Okay, I can't get my fingers here. We're going to start with James.
I think I had it right the first time. I'm over here. Wait, yeah. Over there. I'm James L. Hill. I write sci-fi, fantasy underneath the name of James L. Hill, and I write adult crime novels underneath my alias J. L. Hill. I know it's not very original, but it's what I do, and it's that way at least people know, how to catch up with me. So my crime fictions, I wrote a series of crime novels, so there's 4 of them all together. I call it the Killer series. Each one starts off with Killer with, and then we go to different body parts. And if you read them, you can figure out why the body parts and maybe not. But that's who I am, and that's where I'm at. So let's talk. I'm also New York Giant fan. I'm from New York originally. About 2/3 of my life, I would say, I lived in New York. So
sweet. Well, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Hey folks, I'm Karina Gantus. I am a author of fantasy, dark romance, mafia, motorcycle clubs. I have YA, fantasy and horror. I've got 14 books published. There's something for everyone. I'm also CEO of Author Assist, which helps authors with their books, marketing, promotion and stuff. And I've just been confirmed as a NLP practitioner. So anyone out there that has a lot of baggage, which stops creativity, you can come see me and I'll get rid of it for you.
Heck yeah. Perfect. Topic for you today.
That is absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My name is Heather. I've written under Heather Fleischman and J.R. Gansky. The funny story behind J.R. Gansky is that is actually my husband of 22 years' name. We have a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old together. And I said, if he wouldn't give me his name, then I would just take it and make it famous. So J.R. Gansky was born in the writing community about 5 years ago, and he finally caved in and married me. So, gotta love
Oh,
that. But,
yeah.
science fiction, fantasy, I'm recently pulling away from the writer's aspect and doing more focus on helping other writers who are starting up. When I did it all by myself. I didn't know what I was getting into or how I was going to do it. And it led to a career where I now have a bachelor's in multimedia design. So I can help with, the promotions, the marketing, the web design, the book cover design. I mean, every aspect from start to finish of a book.
Ooh,
So, I've actually opened up my Enchantingly Entangled website to include that and not just, focus on me as a writer anymore. I want it to be a support in the community.
yes. Thank you for joining us. Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sarah Berman, aka Author Goddess. I have 5 novels published under my Runespell series and a double handful of shorts. Most of it is paranormal, but I think the theme of the day is authors who write in everything. So I'm right in there with you guys. Um, I am also doing classes through Cat Rambo's Academy for Wayward Writers, and
Ooh,
that's a lot of fun. So I invite everybody to check that out. And that's pretty much where I'm at today.
yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. Like I said, we've got a great group here and we've got a great crowd in the audience. We've got Anita joining us. Karina's breaking the fourth wall. We've got Linda here this morning. Hello from the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina. Ooh, I bet that was pretty sunrise this morning. Rock Hill Publishing. James, I'm assuming that's you breaking the fourth wall. Yes.
Me breaking it there too.
And then Vanessa's here as well, guys. So there's so much you can talk about. And I know we only have like an hour to go over this topic, but one of the first things I want to know and I want to ask you guys are, what are your current methods to keep your creativity flowing?
Okay,
Oh,
I'll go first then. So I have lots of creativity in me anyway. I do graphic design. I have a podcast. I am an award-winning filmmaker with my trailers. So I'm very creative, and so keeping that going is not a problem for me. It's those that have that creativity, but in a different genre, whether it's writing, music, art, design, graphic design. Creativity just spans so wide. Behind the Pen, which is a TV show that I host, is for all creatives. And I have everyone from, I had a rock band in India. I had a medium who was doing her book about what she does, and it was so scary, so unreal what happened in that episode. And then I've had artists, and creativity just expands. It's all around the world. People have it, they don't have it, they have lots, they have little. It depends what you've got the passion for. And when you've got that passion, that's when it really comes out. And with us, I know many of us have other hats as well, but with us it's writing, and we need to keep on writing. We need to get it out. We'd go crazy if we didn't. So
Sure. Yes.
I hate to play the devil's advocate on it, but, I have recently announced that I quit writing. I know a lot of you guys were there for that green room night where, I just finally told everybody, look, I'm not writing. I'm not doing it anymore. I loved the creative streak that I had, but I'm needed elsewhere. And I ended up doing the opening animations for a production company based out of Northern Michigan. They're second in the series. It's a cop thing too, which was a comedy. I did their promotional camera and their opening credits. So, to play into that, there's so much more creativity that you can do and you can be a part of. I'd just like to add that we don't need to tie ourselves down to just this one thing anymore. And I think my main fear was telling my fans of my writing, that may have been it, guys. I don't know if I'm going to get back to it, but we had a good run, and that's okay. I want everybody to know that that's okay.
Well, Heather, let me jump in here and tell you that I quit writing for years, so it's not over. And even if you think it's over, it's not over. Because I started writing way back in like the '70s and further back than that. And for a while, it was like I fell out of love with publishing, actually, not really the writing part of it, but with the publishing industry as a whole and all the hoops and things you have to jump through to get published. And so I also like programming. I became a programmer and I like working on computers and doing that kind of stuff. So I, and also the money is good in programming. Let me just
It
put it
is.
out there.
It
The
is.
money is very good.
I
So
love it.
yeah,
I love learning. That was like learning a different language for me. And I loved learning how to do the coding and everything because I can speak computers. And to me, that was easier than speaking in front of a crowd.
yeah, and I learned several different languages during those years because every time I got a job as a programmer, they always wanted to know if I could do it in this other language, which I did not have experience in. But the logic is always the same.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the syntaxes are, and you can learn that it's the logic that you have to have it behind you. And so after several years of programming and doing other things, I then came back to writing. And one of the ways that I keep my writing fresh is I write in multi genres. So I write sci-fi, fantasy, and crime novels, and I don't mix the genres. So it's like to write a sci-fi is completely different than for me to write a fantasy or for me to write a crime novel. Crime novels I usually write first person point of view. Fantasies and sci-fi I write in more or less omniscient point of view. So it's a different way of thinking altogether, and that way it keeps me fresh. And so I'll jump from one thing to another. I'll finish a book in fact, I had to force myself to finish the crime novels because I was like, I really need to finish this series. So I had to force myself not to go into something else and finish that so I can finish the project because it was my characters were weighing on me like, come on, come on. It's been a couple of years now. Get done. Let us get out there. And so finally I decided, yeah, I'm going to sit down and finish the crime novels first. And now I'm going back to fantasy. And it's kind of hard to start up on something that you've been away from for a couple of years. So it starts to cook again. And even though that's cooking, sci-fi is in the background saying, hey, remember me? You had this story going. When are you going to get to me? And it's like, okay. So the creativity never really leaves. That's what I'm trying to say. It shifts from this to that. It shifts around, but it never really, you never really lose it.
It's true. Sarah, how about you?
Well, I spend a lot of time in Twitch and Discord chats, and I find the thing that helps me the most with my creativity is helping other people. Like, people will be like, oh, I have this thing and I don't know really what to do with it. And, I'll be like, hey, I get to throw out ideas for this other person. And in the background, my brain is sitting there going, that's a good idea. We should do that. That's a good idea. We should do that.
Okay.
But the one other thing that is absolutely vital, and I think it's something that everybody kind of innately knows, but maybe not consciously, is creativity comes from life, lived experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many different valid ways to get those lived experiences, whether it's, watching other forms of media to spark that, or, going out and climbing Mount Everest. That's not me, by the way. But, we can experience things, we can broaden our horizons, and all of that builds this huge background of feelings and information that we can pull in through our work. And I think taking that to a conscious level has been one of the most fascinating aspects of writing.
Those are all great thoughts. And Vanessa adds hers. My struggle is always idea generation. I'm not one of those writers who gets 20 ideas every time I step outside my house, but I do find inspiration from being social with other creators.
Vanessa, you should add me on Facebook because I have more ideas than I have time for. And I am happy to give them away because I feel like I am cheating the readers out of, some of the greatest stories that could have been written because, I'm just sitting on them while I'm working, 2 jobs and going to school full time. So, please take some of these ideas out of my head. They're killing me.
That's not a terrible idea. So, I mean, I've had somebody send me an idea. They're like, I can't do this idea right now, but I would love to see you create this idea. Like, and I'm like, I will add it to the list. Like, I will get there when I can. And she says, "LOL, Heather, a ton of writers are the same as you with ideas." So
I really hate when people come to me and tell me they have a great idea for a book and I should write it. It's like, no, it's your idea. You write it, and then send it to me.
I know.
I have way too many ideas of my own that I'm not even writing. So please don't give me another one.
I used to be so against that. And here I am, 20 years into writing going, yeah, just run with scissors, man. Have fun. I'm old. I'm tired.
And Vanessa says it took me a long time to understand that I'm not a real writer because of it, which I disagree.
Horse
you
shit.
are a real writer.
Wholeheartedly
shit.
disagree with that, Vanessa.
Yes.
You are a real writer. If you write, you're a real writer.
She doesn't think that. She's got a publishing contract. She's working on like 10 books at the same time. She knows she can write.
Yes.
I never got a publishing contract. I was all on my own. So we're not even going to define what a real writer is by, society's standards anymore because they changed from the time that James and I started writing to the times that they are now. If you put an idea on paper and somebody reads it, you are a writer.
Yep.
Accept it. Get over it. Y'all are going to have to.
Y'all misread it. I said it took me a long time to not think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not a real writer. Gotcha. Okay.
I would just like to point out that if you got a contract for 10 books, what do you need more ideas for?
For real.
Like maybe like, put the idea generation on the backseat for a minute.
Yeah. So my next question for you guys is, have you tried something that did not work for you to help your creativity or help build your creativity up? Like,
oh yeah.
Something that maybe others are like, yeah, this is perfect. You have to do this. Like,
oh yeah.
What are some of those things? Heather, I'm going to pull you up first.
I went on Twitch and I started a channel and I thought, I'll start with gaming because, I love to be a gamer in my pastime. And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to have a separate channel for writers and for the creative aspect. So I tried, just being held accountable by writing on a Twitch channel. I tried having guest people speaking. I love my writer friend Johnny for standing up and going on this with me. He was brilliant. If I had the time, I'd just entertain having him on that channel forever. But it didn't bring the creativity back. It didn't bring my want or my drive to go back into that deep, dark hole that writing was. And having the experience of trying to force myself to go back into that really played into, do I really need to be? Do I need to force myself to go back into this, or can I just let it go and let it come back if it wants to or not?
Yeah.
I did blogging for a little bit. Somebody else wanted me to write a blog for them, a weekly blog. And I said, well, okay, that's cool. I can, do that. I got enough ideas. I can write stuff for a week at a time, And it always came to the idea that I would be there at the very last minute of the day trying to come up with an idea to write for that week's blog. And I did it for like a year. So because I told the guy, yeah, I would do it for you. And I did it for like a year and I realized, no, I hate blogging. This is not generating any really good ideas or any good time for me. It's like midnight Sunday night, and I'm trying to get something out for Monday morning, and it's just was not the idea. Now I have done newsletters. I got 2 newsletters running now, and I do a podcast with my editor. But we only do 13 weeks of podcasts at a time. So every year we do like 13 weeks, and that's it. Because I found that, they always tell you, oh, you need to write every day. You need to write every day because that's what makes you a writer. And I found out that that is not what makes me a writer. That would make me miserable.
Agreed.
So that idea of, oh, you have to write, and just so long you write something, it doesn't matter what you write. No, it does matter to me what I write, and it also matters to me how often I write. So not having a good idea one week to write about, and then just sitting there blabbering around on the keyboard that doesn't really work for me. So blogging out.
Sarah, Karina, who wants to go next?
I have tried doing like writing prompts and things like that, and what I found is that the prompts actually don't work very well for me. I tend to be very resistant to I get locked up into this idea that I have to follow this prompt the exact way, and then I can't do it anymore. And there's some kinds of prompt challenges that are like, use these specific words, and I'm just like, I spend so much time trying to focus on using those words that just kills my creativity every time. So I don't do prompt writing.
Well, like Heather, I gave up writing. I announced to all my readers, all my fans, that I weren't doing it anymore, and I stopped writing for nearly 10 years. And it's because I got ill and I just lost my passion for it. And it wasn't until someone was starting an anthology and they had a prompt, and I wrote a flash fiction, and it got my juices going. When I'm stuck for ideas, then that's when I turn to my fans and I ask them for 3 random words. It doesn't matter what they are. So I get lists and lists of all these 3 different words. I write them all down, close my eyes, pick one from each list. 3 totally random words, and I make a short story about it. And that just gets the juices flowing, the creativity awake again, motivated, and I carry on with what I was stuck at.
I think you're muted still.
You're right. I am. I forgot I muted it. Oh, man. Y'all are right. Those are great, though. Because not everything works for everybody. I have had my own struggles. And we've got Atukim joining us a little late, but hey.
Hello. I'm so sorry. The time zone and, something else. And,
Yeah, the time zones will get you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our viewers what you write real quick before we move on to the next question.
Okay. So my real name is Ramonas Mesuta. So my author name is basically my name spelled backwards. So that was Atukim Sanumar. I write in fantasy / adventure / romance with some erotic elements. I have 5 books published in series right now. And I'm sorry for being late.
It happens. That's life for you. And we've got a couple comments on the topic. It also matters to me what I write. I don't get a lot from writing stuff that doesn't light my fire. Linda says, I'm enjoying the prompts in the April Poetry Room. And then Anita says, I switch between writing and art to help the creative flow, help speed each discipline. And Vanessa asks, when life throws you for a loop and really interferes with your creativity or production, have you found effective ways to get back on track? Kickstart the creativity motivation again? Ooh, that's a great one.
There is one thing that I insist that everybody keep in mind when this happens. If you lose your creativity for a time, forgive yourself, because you will procrastinate more and you'll second guess yourself more and all of this if you try to hold your feet to the fire over all of that missed time that you've just had. No, forgive yourself for having that downtime, and then you can move on.
See, there goes Sarah making me want to cry on TV.
Uh-oh.
Life is hard, Vanessa. It is very hard. And recently, I got the absolute wind knocked out of me. My husband was in a very serious car accident, and if the Jeep would have been 6 inches the other way, he wouldn't be here. So to talk about, life sucking the creativity out of you, having that sort of terror moment and trying to figure out, how you get back to life as you know it, because he was fine. He was fine, and it's just trauma and life that got in the way. And it just that not only does it take your creativity, it takes your drive, it takes your want, it takes your desire, and it just crumples it up into a little ball and it throws it over your shoulder, and you don't know where it went to find it. So, hearing forgive yourself, got a little bit of tears in my eyes because, I think that was just something that I needed to hear today.
Yeah. And Vanessa says, I've been forgiving myself for a long time now. LOL. Which anybody else have? Ooh.
Well,
Yes, trauma in life getting in the way. It's really hard getting back on track.
Yeah.
So
Time is an illusion. You have all the time in the world to get back on track. So don't think about it as, oh, if I don't do this today or tomorrow, it's never going to get done. It will get done. Until you're dead, you have all the time in the world. And once you're dead, it doesn't matter anyway. So, forgive yourself. Like they said, forgive yourself for not writing. And most importantly, don't force yourself to doing something. I one time told a teacher of mine when I was back in high school, I will never do anything that I don't want to do. No one could force me to do anything. And he said, James, you're young now. Wait until you have kids. You will do all kinds of things you don't want to do, and you will be okay with it. And so I carry that with me always, because you don't know what life's going to throw at you, and you don't know what you're going to have to do to get through it. But you will get through it. And writing is the same way. You'll run into brick walls, and you won't know how to get through that brick wall. But given enough time, you'll find a way around the brick wall. And so don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah.
If you want to knock through that wall, you need to find out where the block is. And most of that is to do with your negative thoughts or emotions and trauma that you might have had in the past, or you might be going through at that time. You've got to give yourself grace. You have to. And then you need to face it. You need to unblock and release these negative thoughts, because until you do, that's going to carry on with you. That whatever is doing that block now is going to continue. And so you need to release that so you can be free, breathe again, and get that creativity and get that feeling of living without being pulled down by a weight.
Slow down, take a minute, breathe it out, and just realize that, everything is going to come on its own. The universe isn't going to let you dry up or let you give up. It's going to just roll with it. You've got to learn to roll with it. The more you force yourself, the harder it gets, and it doesn't need to be that hard.
Well, there's a very strong psychological component to this. Like, if you go through something that has trauma, whether it's, like a big thing or a little thing, people have different reactions to different kinds of trauma. Your brain literally shuts down everything that isn't necessary for survival.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, you have to think about it like you have to reassure your brain that you're okay before you can move on to these higher levels of thinking again, because you're just like, your brain's like, no, we have to focus on this thing right here. You're not, it's an uphill struggle if you try to force creativity when you don't have any sense of security.
And I like to add that sometimes writing can be the therapeutic that you need to get through the trauma.
Exactly.
I have written a lot of good things while I was out of work, not knowing where the next dollar is coming from.
Yep.
You know, thinking about how am I going to feed my family, all kinds of ideas, other people's trauma that get put upon you because you can't ignore your family and the people in your life. So when they're going through a hard time, you're going through a hard time, whether you like it or not. Sometimes you're dragged into something that you would not have anything to do with, but since it is your relatives and your friends or something, you're right there with them. And sometimes taking a few minutes out of that day to sit down with a pen and paper and just write something, anything. It clears your mind. It gets these things out of your head, gets stuff out of your way, and sometimes writing about the situation you're in helps you see a way out of it. That's even better than what you would if you didn't do it. So sometimes if you look at your writing as a way of helping you through something, even if, and I'm not talking about writing to publish, I'm just talking about writing to write.
Mm-hmm.
So a
I
lot of
agree with
people
that,
think you have to
James.
publish everything you write. You
Absolutely.
don't have to publish it.
Yeah.
It could be just something that you write. There's a lot of things I write that I have no intention of showing anybody because, you know, I was writing it at the time that I needed to write that. And it's probably never going to see the light of day.
I'm taking
know.
a really, really big step in my life at the moment, and my creativity for my writing, I haven't opened my manuscript, which is 80% done and so really needs to be finished. I haven't opened it for a while now, and I know I will get back to it. Like I said, I'm giving myself grace. I know it's going to be there. The fans have waited 20 years. They can wait even longer for it. But I know that once I do get that out of the way, I'm definitely going to write about what's been going on, because not only does it need to come out, people need to know. So that is something that's going to come sometime soon.
You know, my mom, when I first started struggling to write again, she told me, well, maybe you can't write when you're happy. And I'm like, okay. Because my first 8 novels were written and published when I was a stay-at-home mom and I really didn't have a life. So I was living out these adventures that I was writing. And then my kids and I moved out. We started having a life of our own. We started, you know, growing up. And then now they're all grown up and they're out having their own adventures. And I'm like, I'm out there. I'm doing things. I'm working. I'm watching my kids grow up. I'm just out here having fun. So when my mom said, maybe you can't write when you're happy, it kind of hit home for me because I realized that, you know, a lot of the things that I was writing was a coping mechanism for, you know, that wasn't what I expected my life to be at that point in time. So to try to still write, I can, but what used to take me 6 months now takes me 6 years. And, you know, I had to learn to accept that it was okay to go out and live my life and have these fun moments and not, you know, feel like I was being cheated out of anything else because I wasn't putting it on paper.
Asakim, do you have anything you want to add on this?
Yes, thank you. I was muting myself because there's some background noise, I guess. So yeah, what I do usually, I had obviously I had moments of this where I like wouldn't write for a month or so, and I can, you know, relate to everyone, the life stuff. Things happen. So what I tend to do, I first I'll check what my mind was occupied during these dark, depressing times or hours or days. And usually when we feel down, when a person feels down, right, they usually do the things that put them down even more. So even if when you're depressed, you're gonna be like, oh, I don't like going out. I'm not gonna go talk to anyone. I'll just stay by myself. That type of thing. So I learned to change that, and I would go and do something fun, even if I don't feel like I'm like, oh, just leave me alone. Like I want to be by myself. But I would basically, this is where the discipline comes in, actually, because then it's the same that when with writing, you don't feel like writing, but you go out and write. So I would do something fun. I either watch a show to make myself laugh. I'll go for a walk. I'll treat myself to coffee, something. Or basically when I'm out walking, I usually dream up some story. Doesn't have to be related to the book I'm writing or want to write, but just to do something to get out and not to think about the depressing thing that is currently, occupying my mind. So what I found, like actions, with actions you can change your thinking, because majority of people like do the opposite. They feel like doing or not doing something, and then the actions follow. So I would change my actions to change my thinking. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, if everyone would
completely,
if everyone would start, jumping, clapping, laughing, and stuff, I'm sure everyone else would join in. See, someone's laughing already, right? It was funny, right?
And it's actually kind of nice that you say that, because that's actually leading into my next question. But before we get there, I want to pull some comments up. Vanessa says, thank you, everyone. Those are some good, wise words. Linda says, sometimes I'll do revenge writing that I'll later delete, but it helps me rid of my resentment. And A.L. Mingle's joining us a little bit. He says, hello, everyone. A bit late today, busy with MegaCon stuff. Hope all are well. And he says, I live by the written storm principles. They help me a lot with writer's block and finding the time to write, especially with life's long list of responsibilities and distraction. And I'm also a fake it till you make it person. But before I bring up the next question, because Adikim's comment about taking himself on like a little coffee date and stuff is kind of what's going to lead into this next one, which you may or may not have heard about. But let's check out this week's Indie Connection before we do that.
She does that.
I was about to say, okay,
we love her. We love her.
Or I can pop myself out.
This is the second time she's done it, and as many times as I've been here.
Okay.
Was that part of a question?
Nope.
Where did I go? Now guess.
Like, all right, now you're all on your own.
Hey guys, C.O. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of The Cruel Prince or The Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. The first book I have for you is called Of Stormlarks in Silence by Constance Lopez. To kill the prince, she must first kill her heart. Prince Riona was 8 when the Ravonian king murdered her family and conquered her kingdom with a mysterious magic. She has spent the last decade training and waiting for her moment to avenge them all and reclaim her rightful title. Now that the king is ailing, Riona secures a position within the Ravonian royal palace. Her goals? Get close to the prince. Kill him, uncover Ravon's secret magic, make the king suffer. Only then can she take back her country. But the closer she gets to the prince, the more he surprises her with kindness, honor, and wit. He is nothing like his cruel father. Worse yet, he sees right through to her heart. When she planned this assassination, her heart didn't factor in. And now it's about to ruin all of her plans. The second book I have for you is called Duel of Fire by Jordan Rivet. Dara Ruminor is a competitive duelist in Vertigon, where athletes live like kings as long as the crowds love them. She's good with a sword, but can't figure out how to charm the spectators like a true champion. When Dara is asked to train with Prince Siv, the heir to the throne, she faces her most difficult opponent yet, Handsome, charismatic, and utterly infuriating, he refuses to take the sport, or her, seriously. But someone wants Prince Civ dead, and Dara might be the only one who can protect him. With assassins lurking in the shadows, and tensions brewing between the kingdom's magic wielders, Dara and Civ need each other's help with more than just dueling. Skill with a blade might not be enough to save them. The third book I have for you is called Court of Ravens and Ruin by Eliza Rain. A defiant human woman, a dark fae prince, two enemies bound to a marriage that can destroy their world. Reyna was born a valuable slave to the Gold Court, imprisoned her whole life in a glittering palace by sadistic, greedy fae. When the palace is raided, she takes her opportunity to escape. But the raid is led by her worst nightmare, the prince of the most feared fae of all, the Shadow Court, and he wants one thing. Her, the copper-haired, rune-marked human. Reyna doesn't know why the prince has kidnapped her, but when he announces her as his betrothed, she knows that she must escape before she is eternally bound to the monster behind the mask. Only, when he takes the mask off, he isn't what she expects. He's lethal, beautiful, and exudes sin, and he needs her. Drawn into a deadly world shrouded in secrets, and desperate to keep her own hidden, Reyna must find a way out. If she doesn't, she risks more than just death. She risks giving everything to her intoxicating captor. And the last book I have for you is called House of Chaos by J.C. Mackenzie. When scouts and messengers from the Night House disappear, Thea makes it her mission to find out why. As the granddaughter of one of the founding couples of the New Earthen Society, she's determined to prove herself worthy of their legacy. Her investigation leads to the House of Chaos and the man who once swept her off her feet before inexplicably walking away. Ares, known as a recluse who ruthlessly protects his territory, inherited his anger and life mission from his grandfather. He plans to reopen the portal to Arcavia and reclaim his birthright, but he can't do it alone. The one person who can help him is the very woman he swore to avoid. Thea needs to learn the fate and location of her people, and Ares needs the power flowing in her veins. After forming an uneasy alliance, they soon realize there are forces more deadly and conniving working against them. With their past, truth doesn't come easy, but if they can work together, they might just survive. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
Those are some really good books. There's always really good books on there, and I always keep adding to my TBR list. So
I definitely wanted to get more into reading because, that's one of the things I used to love to do. And I see so many of these talented authors every week, and I'm like, I need to get off my ass.
So, guys, the next question I have is, do you take yourself on artist dates? Like taking yourself to do something fun, something different than what you do for like work, like the whole writing for pleasure to not publish, like James mentioned, or like going and taking yourself for a cup of coffee, or going to get craft supplies to do like scrapbooking or something like that. Have you guys tried taking yourself on an artist date before?
I have. I actually downloaded one of those AI art programs onto my phone, and I started using my words to see what sort of art that it could create just using words. And I started posting those, and they get really interesting. And, I was not a fan of AI generated art when I first started doing graphic design, but times change and things change. And as a writer, I've really gotten behind this because I can put all these words in and then this beautiful piece of art comes out. So, that was something that I actually think is worth, the $5 a month to just sit around and play with, what do my words look like when I talk to an AI machine?
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know if this counts, but I recently got Oculus, the VR gaming, and I really hate gaming, mainly because when gaming came out and I was learning programming, I thought, oh, great, I'm going to write games and stuff, and then found out that there was very few places you can actually send your code to. And so I got out of gaming right away because I really didn't like the idea of that. But now I got into this Oculus where you're in the VR world, and I'm actually using it as research for my science fiction, because I do have a science fiction project that I want to work on that's really very highbrow at the moment, high up in the clouds. And it's been on my mind for years. And it's like, okay, I seen VR coming along and thinking that this was going to be something that would be very interesting and will come about in years. And so I decided, well, let me see where they're at now. And so I got an Oculus system, and I've been on it every now and then, jumping in and jumping out, playing the VR games, just to see what it's like to be in a virtual reality world. And I also go to arcades and got on in some of the VR arcade games in these places. I got some places around here in Virginia Beach that have these VR worlds, and so I find that to be fun. That laser tag, things like that. You get a little exercise playing laser tag, but after a while, that's really strenuous, especially when
It's
you're
funny
playing
you
against
should
kids.
bring up games. My answer would be a resounding no, but that was before. What's coming is going to allow me to do all of this. And what I'm doing on Wednesday, I'm arriving back in the UK on Tuesday, and on Wednesday night, I'm going to my first ever role-playing game night. I've never done role playing before. I have no idea what I know I have to roll a dice or something. I don't know. But being a writer and having that creativity and having a character and whatever we're doing, because like I said, it's Dungeons and Dragons. I've no idea what's going to happen, but I'm so excited because I've never done it before. I'm trying something new, and it's going to get my creativity going again. So yes, I will be going on these artist dates definitely more often.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
so happy for you. I have so much fun with those.
You got to let us know how that works out, because I'm also not
real.
into the.
Record it. I'm going to tell you, I have one, the last one that I did with Dungeons and Dragons with my kids. I recorded it, and I started using that adventure as one of, my writing practices. And all of my recordings are still there. I can get back to it whenever I get back to it. But it was just so much fun to think, we just went through all of that. I am so glad I recorded it.
Yes. There's a lot of people that draw inspiration from that. So
I was in this VR world, and I think everybody was calling me a hacker because because I realized this one game I was in was moving so fast it was making me dizzy. And so the second time I jumped into the world, I sat down in my chair and played from sitting down, so I could just swivel back and forth around and everything. And of course, it's a shoot 'em up type game, and people are like, "He's a hacker. He's a hacker." I guess they didn't realize that I can just spin around in the chair and just shoot at people, because I didn't have to turn my body or anything, and I was much quicker doing that. And it didn't affect with my equilibrium, where I was, thinking I was going to crash into something.
Gaming
that scene
smarter.
has just come in my head of you on your chair with this gun, virtual gun, spinning and shooting everything around you. That's so cool.
That is working smarter, not harder, right there.
Yes. Yes. Atakim, Sarah, do you guys have anything you want to share about artist dates that you've had?
Well, artist date is like the term just new for me, so I never called it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, usually if I want to take a breath of fresh air, so I would go for a walk, and I'll just go and dream up something, like plunge into the fantasy world I would like to be a part of. On the flip side, I mean, because I have kids, the oldest is 12 and the youngest is 7 now. Yay. So we'd go, together to sit down like in a coffee shop and stuff. So kids would have their drinks. Me and my wife would talk about interesting things in life and stuff. It's not like, I'm not sure if I do anything extraordinary for artist days. Usually I'd be by myself, not being bothered by anyone. So that's why I prefer going for a walk over anything else. I do play video games. I grew up with video games, so I'd be someone people would call a veteran. I don't play as much nowadays, obviously, but maybe that's why my books, fantasy books, were a lot of gaming inspired. Because believe it or not, at least when I was like younger kid, and then started playing video games, they had a really deep stories behind the characters that the games were developed, made. So games are games, but I played them a lot because of really good stories too. So yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely qualify as an artist date. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'll go on artist days every day then. Well, every other
Yes. Sarah, do you want to add anything on this one?
I've done the I like to stay in for my alone time. Like, kids are in school, Hubs is at work. I order me a coffee, get it door dashed so, I can be all like served, like I'm some sort of lady or something. But lately I've been thinking about like actually having a kind of retreat kind of thing, because the kids are getting old enough that I could leave them alone for periods of time and stuff. And I have two that I'm really looking into doing. One of them is just finding a really nice hotel in the area and piecing out for like a weekend or even a whole week.
I have
And just
totally
like,
done that.
I
I've
don't
thought
have to
about
clean
it.
the house. I don't have to cook
Yes.
supper. I don't have to make sure that, so and so gets to the doctor or
Oh my God, it
anything
is
like that.
so therapeutic.
Just like boom. And the other one is kind of the same, but Amtrak has like the cars, like the sleeper cars, and they usually have like enough room that you could set up a laptop and stuff. And I was like, wouldn't it be just cool to take a train like all the way across the country, those really scenic routes, and be able to set up in the observation car and watch the beautiful scenery of this country go by, and maybe write down some things and do some work. But just once again, just literally removing myself from all of the daily obligations and being able to focus on my ideas, my creativity, my work, instead of being interrupted like every 10 minutes. So those are like more plans and things I've actually done, but
Hashtag
someday.
goals.
Right?
Please.
Sarah,
Yeah.
that's one of my bucket lists. To
Yes.
take the train
It-
ride across the country
It is now on
and
mine.
and type and work. It's on my bucket list because I take the train back to New York. I don't like driving that long anymore. I drove from California back to Virginia with my ex-wife. She was my ex-wife at the time too. I flew out there to help her drive back from Fresno, and it's like, oh my God, I can't stand driving long distances like that anymore.
Yeah.
So whenever I go to New York, or if I have to go far, if I don't fly, and if I go to New York, I take the train because it's really easy to go from Virginia to New York on the train. And it's my bucket list is to, here comes the cat again. My bucket list is to take the train ride around the country, because I know a person I work for, one of my bosses, her husband took his daughter around the country on the train ride before she went to college, and that was his big daddy-daughter thing to do.
Ooh.
And I think that would be a great thing to get your juices going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. And we've got one more question in here, and this will be the last question before we go around to do our stuff. How did the pandemic affect your creativity?
It helped mine. That was actually what was the turning point that made it so that I could stop looking at, working two jobs and doing all this other stuff. So I was able to focus on school and focus back on my writing. So I was able to finish that last novella that I actually got to put out within this last year. So the pandemic was a gift for me because it gave me the ability to just take a step back, let everything reset, and go again.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because the pandemic actually helped me. I put out 5 books for my other authors during that time because my editor, who lives in South Africa, came here to go on a cruise with me for a publishing cruise. And when we got off that boat, the pandemic hit, and she wasn't able to go back home for like a year and a half. So we was able to work, other than being like, we're like 6 hours apart time-wise most of the time. So it's hard for us. We can only work like an hour or two at a time. But with her stuck here with me, we was able to work not only on my book, but also on my other authors' books.
That's
that we was
awesome.
able to edit and everything. And I put out like 5 books in that year of the pandemic, that first year. And then I wrote a short story about the pandemic that's up on my website now, because I never did put together the anthology. It kind of like got to the point where, I don't think a pandemic anthology is really going to sell well. I think people are tired of the pandemic. So, I just told everybody to go ahead and release your story any way you like. We're not going to do the anthology deal, but it gave me a lot of stuff to work with. I was able to put out my last 2 novels in the crime series because I had the extra time. I didn't have to go to work, so I got time that I can actually sit and work at home and actually work on because you come up with ideas and you say, okay, let me stop doing this and work on this book for half an hour. And then I can go back to doing what I had to do for work, So it was very productive for me. We need another one.
No, James, don't. Oh my gosh, take that back.
Yes.
All right,
wipe the screen. Let's take that back. Oh,
We need one that's not as physically traumatizing, but gives us the emotional and mental rest that we all need.
Yes. That's okay. Yes.
It was a negative and positive thing for many authors. The ones that I interviewed on my show, there was either authors that just stopped writing, that were not motivated, got depressed, couldn't snap out of it. And then there was those that always wanted to write a book, didn't have the time. Now they had the time. And so you see a big increase of books because, like James said, he had the time to do some work with his editor living there. Those that have never written a story before had time to write the story. Myself, I didn't pick my pen up once because I was so busy training authors how to promote themselves digitally, because they're so used to selling face to face at the cons. They had no idea about Zoom. They had no idea about marketing online. So I was so busy teaching these authors how to promote themselves. And then I said to them, look, just because it's over now and you've got your cons back on, don't forget that this door is open. It's always open. People are there waiting to hear who you are and to hear about your books,
That's true. That is true. Atakim, do you want to add in on this?
Yes, I'm always waiting for my author name to be like 2 minutes. Your time. Like, go for it. So yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's the right way to say it. It's like it was kind of funny when the pandemic started because that's when I started to write. So it wasn't like official yet. So I started writing in the beginning of February 2020, I think, or end of January, somewhere like that. And then they announced the thing. So it wasn't too restrictive here in UK, because I live in UK, compared to other countries that I've heard. So it did impact my writing. I mean, basically it helped because my favorite spot to write is in a coffee shop. Surprise. And I write using like in a journal with a pen, and then I transfer to computer. It's just so much easier for me. I don't know, I got used to it. So there were so few people going out, so in a coffee shop it was very quiet, and it's like no noise, nothing. There was a point when they shut everything down. I couldn't go out anyway, but they open it, but only like limited spaces. So there's one coffee shop that has second floor, and the second floor was always closed. and I would come down. I buy 1 cup of coffee, and I'll sit for 4 or 5 hours. So then one of the employees came over and said, how about we make a deal? She said, you can go upstairs, there's no one there, and, we need a free seat, because people coming and going, and you're like sitting here for like 4 or 5 hours. Do you mind, having the whole second floor for yourself? I'm like, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So actually it really helped me because there was nobody walking back. I mean, I'm used to it now, even if people are there, but when there's no one there, it's even better. So I did a lot of writing during that time, and well, I got into habit going and writing in a coffee shop.
Nice.
So yeah, I became a coffee addict.
That's not hard to do.
Not at all.
Sarah, do you want to share your story on it?
Well, I first off, I'm going to say I'm so glad for all of you that you had such a good time writing during the pandemic. I personally had several things kind of crash around the same time and then get made even worse by the pandemic. So it was kind of traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
But I will say that I've managed to channel most of that emotional distress into various stories. So there was, that benefit. And I've really appreciated the expansion of being able to work online, not just as, having the tools to work online, but the tools to be able to socialize with other writers online, and the number of virtual cons that have either increased or been created for that has been life-changing. Because I mean, even before that, I was in a relatively small town in a relatively low population state in the middle of nowhere. There weren't many options for me in the first place that weren't online. So that was a huge advantage. So yeah, it was kind of a roller coaster for my creativity, though.
No, I totally agree with you, Sarah, because that was I had the same kind of experience. I had a crap ton of anxiety. While I started my publishing journey that year, like right before the pandemic started, I had published my first book. I also had I think my son was either 2 or 3. So I was stuck at home. I was away from family. I had nobody. My husband, he technically was one of those that had to continue to figure out how to work because he works in the restaurant business. And we had to figure out to make sure he wasn't bringing COVID home and stuff like that. So we set up this thing and where he had to come to the garage and basically disinfect himself and go straight to the shower. And it was just extremely stressful. And somehow I managed to write during that, which helped. But I do not want to go through it again. Nope.
Yeah, it was a big change, and it was a lot for a lot of people to go through. But at the same time, most of my writing was done because I was sequestered in a house to begin with. I was just a stay-at-home mom. So, it was its own little pandemic. And I'd already done that for 16 years. So, throw a virus onto it for me. And I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's just another day. And then I got sucked into the whole essential business. And I went out and everything and had to go out and work every day. And then, that snowballed into all of these new positions that, it was helpful, but it was hurtful to the creativity and the creative process at the same time. So, it's just about finding that balance.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, let's go around and tell everybody where they can find your books and everything, and then we'll turn it over to the last 5 minutes with James. So we're going to start in reverse here. And Atakim, you can start us out. Tell everybody where they can find your books and your work.
hello again. I mean, do I need to introduce myself? Well, basically, my books are on Amazon. Okay, if I am allowed to advertise, this is my first book in the series. So if you go on Amazon, type Atokim Sanumar, now my name comes up as a suggestion. So yay, achievement. And well, Meeting Eve Cycle Star Adventure. That's the name of the series. So I have a website which is also called cyclestaradventure.com, but it's well the it's redirected to Amazon, so it's only because my books are on KU as well. So like I said, I have 5 at the moment. Yeah, you can find them on there, and if you decide to read it, I'm very much interested to hear the feedback.
Yes. Sarah? Oh, you're muted, hon.
Okay, there we go. You can find me pretty much anywhere as Author Goddess or Sarah Berman. If you just want a one-stop shop, authorgoddess.com. You got all my books. You have my editing services, and you can also sign up for my newsletter where you'll get like monthly reminders of things that I'm doing. So
Sweet. Yes. Heather?
All right, everybody. You can find me on my website, enchantingly-entangled.com. That's going to be the one-stop shop. It's going to get you to my Facebook. It's going to get you to everywhere that I should be, because 90% of them I forget that I even have. So it's a good place to start if you want to find me.
Awesome. Karina? You're muted.
There we go. Okay. You can find everything about me in my books and everything on Linktree. If your creativity is stuck, there's a reason. So get in touch and let's get you motivated again. And if there's any creative people watching now, find me on social media if you're interested in being a guest on my TV show Behind the Pen, which gets streamed to 100 million homes.
Yes. All right, guys, before I turn it over to James for the rest of the day, I'm Madilynn Dale, author of the Ember series and the Face Shifter series. I also have some other stories out there. I, too, have a podcast and my own YouTube channel where I chat with different creatives all across, like, the creative field. I'm a blogger, and I am a common face here on Go Indie Now, as Karina is as well. And this week we have a bunch of great shows coming up, and it's going to be a fun week. You can find all of my stuff at thechaptergoddess.com and find me on social media as well. All my links are there to that as well. But without further ado, enough about me. And also make sure you check out all the links to everybody's stuff in the description below. Let's turn it over to the amazing James Hill as he shares with us a little bit about his books, his world, and his
What
creativity.
are you doing out?
All right. Well, thank you. I guess it's up to me now. Last 5 minutes, so we'll make this interesting, I hope. Little shot here. I've been taking these off camera, so getting ready. Well, first off, you heard a lot about me, but you haven't heard a lot about Rock Hill Publishing, which I started back in 2013. And I started it because not only to publish my own work, but also to publish other new authors who were finding it hard to get published. And because of my work in computer programming and word processing, document processing, things like that, I worked in the financial sector. I worked in all sorts of different industries as a programmer. And so I learned how to actually put together a book and how to put these things out. And like I said, I've been writing for decades. And I took a break. I went into computer programming and did that to make money and everything. And I love actually programming. And so as I came out of that life and as I decided, hey, you know what? I have all these stories that I need to really get down and really write. And one story that I really wanted to do was my Killer series. And that was a 4-book series. And let's see, I grabbed the books over here. So this is the first one in the series. Let's see, where can I put that? There we go. Killer with a Heart. That was the start of the series, about the two young men in their teens, and one's a mafia boss, one's getting ready to go into the mafia. The other one is a gang leader or in the gangs in the South Bronx, and that's where the story starts. And so they rob a money drop. They rob a mob money drop, and it causes a war. Now, the reason why I wrote that book was so I can get to this book, which is Killer with Three Heads, which is where the whole story revolves around. So book 2 is actually the impetus of the story that I had in mind when I wrote this. And it was about what would you, or why would somebody kidnap the daughter of the most dangerous man in the world, a career criminal? Why would you actually kidnap his daughter? And what would happen if you did that? And so that's the whole Killer series. It takes you through the lives of these two people, Morris Mojo Bulletproof Johnson, or Bulletproof Morris Mojo Johnson. He gets the nickname Bulletproof in the first book because he survived the shootout in the Bulletproof limousine. And so from then, he keeps going on, becoming a bigger criminal. And so you get Killer with Three Heads, and then we go to Killer with Black Blood. It's hard to put this thing up because I got a window in front of me, and so glare is like crazy. And then I finally finished the last one, which was Killer with Ice Eyes. And so the story takes you through this guy's life, or these two guys' lives, as they go up in the crime world and how it winds up being this international crime syndicate. So that was one of the impetuses of me started my Rock Hill Publishing, because it's really hard sometimes to get people into a series. And I knew I had to put out 4 books, and therefore trying to sell 4 different books to publishers, I knew it was going to be hard. So I decided, you know what? I know how to do this. I'll put them out myself. And then along the way, I learned a lot more about the publishing business. I learned I was on book covers. So I had graphic artists who put together book covers for me. And of course, my editor, as I said during the speaking part, that wound up stuck here during COVID. And like I said, that really worked out well because we had started picking up other authors, and it was hard to work together with 6-hour differences. So she's asleep when I'm awake, I'm asleep when she's awake. And so she would work on something, have to get it to me. I would look it over. I would work on something, have to get it to her. And so when unfortunately she got stuck here, unfortunately for her, because, it was an inconvenience for her to spend a year and a half here. But she got a very good look at what America was like, because she used to ask me all kinds of things about America. And I was like, that's just the way we are. That's just the way America is. And when she got here, she could not understand how people in America actually think and think about their freedom and all this kind of stuff. It's like, even if it was against what was really good for them, they would not do it because they had that idea. Well, you can't tell me what to do. And it was like, but this for their better. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, don't tell them. You got to try to convince them to do something. And we learned a lot more about publishing. And then we also learned a lot more about online stuff, because when COVID hit, the whole dynamic of publishing and writing got switched overnight. Everything closed down, and a lot of authors was into going out and meeting people and doing office signings and all that kind of stuff. And it was dwindling at the time. It was hard to get those type of things going, but there were events that was happening and that you could be part of these events. And so when COVID hit, all that shut down. And then we had to find a new way of doing these things. And, Zoom became very big. Uh, if I only knew now what I know then, or only knew then what I knew now, I would have bought stock in Zoom because obviously it had taken off and became very big. I knew about Zoom. You know, I work for the government, and so people are all around the country, and so we have Zoom meetings and things like that. It wasn't as big as it is now. So more and more people got into Zoom. Uh, so the Rock Hill Publishing Company took off. Like I said, the pandemic was good for me because I was able to put out 5 books that year, whereas usually we put out 1 or 2. And basically, I really only want to put out 1 or 2 at a time because it takes so much to work on.
Yeah,
a
I'm coming
single
out in
book.
5 minutes. So yes, put it on the table for me with the garlic.
So if you want to find me, you could go to rockhillpublishing.com. You will find all my books. You will also find all the authors that I publish. I publish in romance, science fiction, fantasy, and adult novels. Not just crime novels, but novels geared towards adult women fiction, that kind of thing. Some historical stuff. I also write fantasy. Like I said, I'm working on the Gemstone series, which is a fantasy trilogy, and I just got back into working on that one. So I'm into book 2 on that. And it's really hard when you put something down for like a year or 2 and then pick it back up, because I remember the main part of the story, but I don't remember everything I wrote up until that point. So you have to go back, read it all over again. And then what was I thinking? Where was I going to go? And in the meantime, of course, you come up with new ideas that you want to put into your book. So new stuff comes up that you didn't think about when you was originally writing this, and you jumped off of that bandwagon to go on to the Killer series. So now since I'm back into that, and as you can see behind me, you probably can't. Well, it's on this side. That's the Emerald Lady, and that's the first book in the series, and that takes place in the golden age of pirates. So it's sort of a time. It's a historical novel, and it jumps time. So the first book is in the golden age of piracy. The next book is going to take you back to the age of castles. So it's about mermaids, dragons, and men, and this world building of how the dragons, mermaids, and men control the world. And we dabble in actual history. So I frame it around actual events, and so that's my fantasy. I like history. I was really good in school in history, very bad in school in remembering facts and everything. So I could make up my own facts as I go along. I don't know how much more time I got. I think I might be running out of time. I don't know. But anyway, you can find me at rockhillpublishing.com, which is the easiest way to find me. You can also go to jlhill-books.com, which is my personal website for all my writing. And of course, I'm on Facebook and everything else. So if you just type in JL Hill or James L. Hill, you'll definitely find me. If you type in any of my book titles, you'll find me. I also write sci-fi. My Pegasus: A Journey to New Eden book is out there. And that was actually the first book that I wrote. And it takes place in the near future, because when I write sci-fi, I like to write sci-fi about the near future that people can imagine and see coming to fruition. And some of the things I wrote in that book back in the 70s are actually coming through now. And so we see, that's how I like to write sci-fi. I like to write it in the point of, these are the things that's going to happen. All right. I guess I'm running out of time here. So there was something I was supposed to say at the end of this, and let's see if I can figure it out. Oh, yeah. It's always time to go indie now.